FBI director has finally testified in front of Congress yesterday. Although Christie believes that it went very well for him, I actually do not think that it went very well for him. There are three issues I want to discuss. The first issue is the FBI director's connection with FISA. So for those who are not aware, FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So we want to go ahead and get started with that first, with this clip here from Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz really went in on the FBI director yesterday, a couple of others as well. We'll get into those also.
How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that in the 3.4 million of these queries, more than 1 million were in error. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment by the Inspector General?
I'm not sure actually that's a correct characterization of the Inspector General's findings on that.
The internet will remind you of that in moments. But let's now go to what the court said. The court said it was over 200,000 that have occurred on your watch. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment?
Again, I don't have the number as I sit here right now. What I can
Seems like a number you should know. How many times the FBI is breaking the law under your watch? How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million?
So here's mistake number one. You're the FBI director. You know you're going to testify in front of Congress, and he did not come prepared. First and foremost, you should know numbers. You should have known that this question was going to come your way. It's not like you're walking into this blind and you don't know anything. So he should have known the numbers. And number two, to me, it's really interesting because when we talk about FISA, again, that's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Agency. This kind of reminds me of the Twitter files a little bit too, because remember, one of the things that was revealed during the Twitter files is the FBI's engagement with Twitter executives and censoring people and certain accounts that they said were foreign accounts. We're going to get into that in a little bit as well. I don't buy that Director Wray here doesn't know these things. I think he showed up very ill prepared, and I think he felt like he could do that because he is the FBI director, and I feel like he knows that he's protected. I mean, you can't walk in like this. Listen.
Illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that in the 3.4 million of these queries, more than 1 million were in error. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment?
More than 1 million of those queries were an error, and that's coming from the Inspector General. That's dangerous. How do you make that many errors? More than 1 million? And that leads to this question. What else have you messed up? What other errors has the FBI director made? Let's finish here.
By the Inspector General?
I'm not sure actually that's a correct characterization of the Inspector General's findings on that.
The internet will remind you of that in moments. But let's now go to...
So when Matt Gaetz says the internet will remind you of that moment, that's Matt Gaetz letting him know that all you had to do was Google the information, that the information is available on the internet. So anybody can look this up. So if Matt Gaetz was able to do it, the FBI director is able to do it as well. So that's a way of him kind of giving a dig at him in a sense to kind of let him know, like, this is not difficult information for you to find.
What the court said it was over 200,000 that have occurred on your watch. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment?
Again, I don't have the number as I sit here right now. What I can
Seems like a number you should know. How many times the FBI is breaking the law under your watch?
Over 200,000, the court has said. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I just want you to think about the way that they spoke to Matt Taibbi when he was there, not Matt Gaetz, but some of the representatives, the way that they spoke to him. How dare you not know this? How dare you not know that? Matt Taibbi's a journalist. This is the director of the FBI, and he doesn't know these numbers in reference to query errors that he made in reference to FISA. Now there's more because this gets pretty in the nitty-gritty. So Jonathan shared this. Representative Mike Johnson grills FBI Director Christopher Wray on the injunction ruling regarding the landmark Missouri versus Biden case. Let's go ahead and get into this discussion here.
And then July 4th, we had this explosive 155-page opinion from a federal court in my home state of Louisiana. It explains in detail that the FBI has been directly involved in what the court says is, quote, arguably the most massive attack against free speech in United States history. The court ordered the White House, DOJ, and FBI, among others, to immediately cease colluding with and coercing social media companies to suppress American speech, of course, conservative speech in particular. Director Wray, I find it stunning. You made no mention of this court opinion either in your opening statement today or in this lengthy 14-page report that you prepared on July 12th, which was 8 days after the court ruling. Have you read the ruling, sir?
I am familiar with the ruling, and I've reviewed it with our Office of General Counsel.
So that's a yes. He could have just said yes.
Are you deeply disturbed by what they've told you about the ruling if you haven't read it yourself?
Obviously, we're going to comply with the court's order, the court's preliminary injunction. We sent out guidance to the field and the headquarters about how to do that. Needless to say, the injunction itself is a subject of ongoing litigation, and so I'll decline to comment further on.
Well, let me tell you what
they shouldn't have had their hands on these social media platforms to begin with in the first place. Like, it's really embarrassing in a sense. Like, if I was the FBI director, I'd be really embarrassed to sit there and have to admit, well, the court made this ruling against you in reference to your activity on these social media platforms. It's embarrassing. And you know why it's embarrassing? Because a lot of times I think the average American sits at home and they watch these TV shows and these movies where someone is an FBI agent or they work for the CIA and the NSA, and they make it seem like they're doing like this stressful job of trying to track down serial killers. Not to say they don't do that, but if you watch the movies, it makes it seem like this is what FBI agents are doing. They're out there looking for serial killers. They're trying to stop like terrorist threats on the American population. Like, that's what the entertainment business would have you to lead. And then for you to have to sit there in front of Congress and for the whole world to basically hear, this is what they've been doing. They've been spending time on social media platforms. And to that, I say again, don't you have a serial killer to go catch? This is what they've been spending their time doing. It reminds me of the times when cops go to Dunkin' Donuts just to get donuts and just sit in the car instead of actually trying to stop crime.
court concluded, because it should be the first thing you think about every morning and the last thing you think about at night. They said that, quote, the court found, apparently the FBI engaged in a massive effort to suppress disfavored conservative speech and blatantly ignored the First Amendment's right to free speech. The evidence shows the FBI threatened adverse consequences to social media companies that they did not comply with its censorship request.
They were threatening social media companies. The FBI they were threatening them.
The court found that, quote, this seemingly unrelenting pressure by the FBI and the other defendants had the intended result of suppressing millions of protected free speech postings by American citizens. As a result, the court states, for example, millions of citizens did not hear about the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to the November 3rd, 2020 election.
Okay, so now it gets into the Hunter Biden laptop story. So when we talk about the suppression and we talk about the suppression of freedom of speech, it only applied to certain areas because it was okay for them not to suppress certain subjects that they found was favorable of the Biden administration, for example. They wanted to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story because that's not favorable to the Biden administration. That's not favorable to the president of the United States. But then there were some issues that they let get a pass. So that being said, they weren't even consistent when it comes to the suppression.
Page 4 of the court ruling lists some of the important subjects that the Biden administration and the FBI forced the social media platforms to suppress. The evidence shows you, your agency, the people that directly report to you, suppressed conservative-leaning free speech about topics like the laptop, the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origin, the effectiveness of masks and COVID-19 lockdowns and vaccines, speech about election integrity in the 2020 presidential election, security of voting by mail, even parody about the president himself, negative posts about the economy. The FBI made the social media platforms pull that information off the internet if it came from conservative sources.
Now, why would they want to suppress negative content about the economy? Why would they want to suppress that? Because they don't want a class war. That's why they would want to suppress it. The same reason why they suppressed and then eventually stopped the Black Panther movement. Because they didn't want a class war. Remember, the Black Panther Party wasn't just about Black liberation. The Black Panther Party was out there feeding people in the community, clothing people in the community. And when you have someone like Fred Hampton join forces with the Young Lords and the Young Patriots, now you have people of different races uniting together for a class struggle. So just like they suppressed and eventually stopped the Black Panther Party movement, is the same way that they have suppressed and is still trying to stop any type of class consciousness in this country. Otherwise, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you suppress that? People complaining about the economy. All people have to do is look at their bank account, look at the prices in the grocery store, look at the gas prices. It's not like people can't see this for themselves. But what they didn't want is they didn't want content on social media drawing more attention to it because it can ignite a fuse in people. There have been multiple labor strikes that have been happening that are still happening. JB and I just talked about the actors going on strike now, along with the writers. So when you have all these different labor strikes back to back to back, and you have inflation, and people aren't paid a living wage, and the homelessness rate has increased in this country, that actually wakes the American people up more so to a class consciousness, which can lead to more anger and then to action and then eventually a class war. And that is what they do not want to happen.
They did this under the guise that it was disinformation. Can you define what disinformation is?
What I can tell you is that our focus is not on disinformation, broadly speaking.
Well, wait a minute. Yes, it is.
Well,
wait a minute.
Can I answer the question?
You can in a minute. Your star witness said in the litigation, Elvis Chan, who's in charge of this, said they do it on the basis of disinformation. We need a definition of what that is.
Simple question. What is the definition of disinformation?
Our focus is on malign foreign disinformation, that is foreign hostile actors who engage in covert efforts to
Mr.
abuse.
Ray.
That is a damn lie. Okay? Think about the examples that he just gave. Negative information about the economy. Okay? The Hunter Biden laptop story. What did that have to do with foreign information? Those documents were leaked right here in the United States. It was the New York Post who leaked the Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember, Glenn Greenwald wanted to cover that first, and The Intercept said no. That's why Glenn Greenwald left The Intercept. So the New York Post released the story first. Okay, so what is he talking about? Foreign actors? These are things that happen right here in this country, not abroad. Let's go back a little bit. What a mess.
Not on disinformation, broadly speaking.
Well, wait a minute. Yes, it is. Wait a minute.
Can I answer the question?
You can in a minute. Your star witness said in the litigation, Elvis Chan, who's in charge of this, said they do it on the basis of disinformation. We need a definition of what that is.
Our focus is on malign foreign disinformation, that is foreign hostile actors who engage in covert efforts to
Mr.
abuse
Ray,
our social media platforms, which is something that is not seriously in dispute.
I have to stop you for time.
We're going to pause here for a second because the Twitter files actually proves him wrong. Because one of the things that was revealed in the Twitter files is that some of those accounts that they told Twitter executives to suppress or to remove that they thought were foreign agents weren't even foreign accounts. They were people right here in the US who were American. So you see how he's trying to spin this to make it seem like we were just trying to protect the American people from these bad foreign actors. You guys were censoring people that you said were affiliated with Russia that were not affiliated with Russia at all. This is the lie that he's telling. Look at the look on his face. You guys believe this guy? Come on, man.
That's not accurate. You need to read this court opinion because you're in charge of enforcing it. The court has found that, and Elvis Chan testified under oath in charge of this for you. He said 50%. He had a 50% success rate in having alleged election disinformation taken down or censored. That wasn't just foreign adversaries, sir. That was American citizens. How do you answer for that?
Well,
see, that's another example. That happened right here. That's why I said this does not make any sense.
first off, I'm not sure that's a correct characterization.
Comes
of
right
his
out of the opinion.
testimony.
You should read
But
it.
of his testimony. But what I would say is the FBI is not in the business of moderating content or causing any social media company to suppress or censor.
That is not what the court has found.
What I would
That is a lie. That is a big fat lie. Do you guys see why they attacked Matt Taibbi so heavily? Do you see why they came after him the way that he did? Because he exposed information that really we weren't really supposed to know. We weren't supposed to know that the FBI was monitoring these sites. I mean, I always had suspicion, but after the Twitter files, we had actual evidence. We had actual evidence, okay? So my whole thing is that we know that's a lie. Representative Johnson knows it's a lie because he was on the committee for the Twitter files. So when Matt Taibbi testified in front of Congress, Representative Johnson was on that committee. So he heard the whole thing. So the thing is again, after that, even the court realized that, yes, they were on those social media platforms. And I cannot believe that this guy is sitting here telling this bold-faced lie that they did not have their hands on these platforms. There are emails from the FBI, screenshots of them revealed in the Twitter files. Well, not only did they have their hands on those platforms, but they reached out to certain Twitter executives. One of them, Yoel Roth, you heard his name over and over again, asking him to suppress certain content and to remove certain accounts. This is all in email. So I'm sorry, like he's sitting here lying, but the emails don't lie.
also say is among the things that you listed off, I find ironic the reference to the lab leak theory. The idea that the FBI would somehow be involved in suppressing references to the lab leak theory is somewhat absurd when you consider the fact that the FBI was the only agency in the entire intelligence community to reach the assessment that it was more likely than not that was the explanation
But your
for the pandemic.
your agents pulled it off the internet, sir. That's what the evidence in the court has found.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Oh, man. And Christie thought that this guy did a good job. Now, I have another clip that I want to play as well, because this is a hot mess. The Hunter Biden issue comes up. Of course, it's Matt Gaetz who brings it up. And Matt Gaetz wants to know, is the FBI trying to protect Joe Biden? Listen to this, guys.
The American people need to understand what just happened. My Democrat colleague just asked the director of the FBI whether or not they are buying information about our fellow Americans. And the answer is, well, we'll just have to get back to you on that. It sounds really complicated. But I have other questions. I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI
Well, you
does
won't
not
answer the
and has
question.
no
Hold on.
interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you. But let's go from the...
If they're not protecting the Bidens, then why did they ask Twitter to censor and suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story? If they're not trying to protect the Bidens, what were they trying to prevent the American people from seeing there?
uncurious to the downright nosy. How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that
We're going to speed up a little bit here because we saw this part where he talks about the Inspector General. Okay.
Again, I don't have the numbers I sit here right now. What I can
seems
tell
like
you,
a number you should know. How many times the FBI is breaking the law under your watch, especially if it's like over 1 million, to not know that number? And I'm worried about your veracity on the subject as well. Play the video.
letters for
you going to the
investigation
FISA
of
court?
the Capitol.
Or you
I don't
going-
believe FISA is remotely implicated in our investigation.
So there, Senator Lee's asking you whether or not FISA was in any way involved in your January 6th investigation, and you say no. Was that truthful?
I said that I did not believe it was.
Okay, so now let's pull up what the court said, which was something a little different than what you said. So here, no, that's not the right one. Yeah, here we go. Right there, it says, the government has reported additional significant violations of the querying standard, including several relating to the January 6, 2021 breach of the Capitol. So I guess the question, Director Ray, is did you not know when you were answering these questions that the FBI was engaging in these illegal searches, or did you perjure yourself to Senator Lee?
I certainly didn't perjure myself. At the time that I testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I didn't have that piece of information. I will add.
Well, that was a court order. You didn't have that piece of information because the court hadn't yet rendered a judgment. Did you not know when you gave the untruthful answer before Senator Lee that this was going on?
It was a truthful answer. I did not believe FISA had been involved in the January 6th
But it was.
investigation.
So you didn't, the answer is the FBI has broken so bad that people can go and engage in queries that when you come before the Congress to answer questions, you're like blissfully ignorant. You're blissfully ignorant as to the unlawful queries. You're blissfully ignorant as to the Biden shakedown regime.
I don't think he's ignorant at all. I think he's just covering his ass. Like, I don't think he's that ignorant. You're the director. How do you not know that these things are happening? And this just really just shows you just how broken and dysfunctional these government agencies are in our country. No order, no organization. They seem all over the place. We're supposed to trust them to protect us from terrorists. This organization, he doesn't even know what's going on, according to him.
And it just seems like it gets into a kind of a creepy place as well. Go to our next image on what the court said. Like, just so the American people realize, the court has smacked you down, ruling FBI personnel apparently conducted queries for improper personal reasons. People were looking themselves up, they were looking their ex-lovers up. Who has been held accountable or fired as a consequence of the FBI using the FISA process as their like creepy personal snoop machine?
Isn't that like an abuse of company like power and funds? The FBI agents have time to sit there and look up themselves to use queries for personal interest. I don't think that's right. Again, like I said before, shouldn't they be out trying to find serial killers? This is what they've been doing with their time, people. This is what they've been doing with their time. And contacting people on Twitter, telling them to remove people.
There have been instances in which individuals have had disciplinary action and who
Name
are no
them.
longer with it. I can't get into it here, but we can follow back up
But
with
don't you
that.
see that that's kind of the thing, Director Ray, that you preside over the FBI that has the lowest level of trust in the FBI's history. People trusted the FBI more when J. Edgar Hoover was running the place than when you are. And the reason is because you don't give straight answers. You give answers that later a court deems aren't true. And then at the end of the day, you won't criticize an obvious shakedown when it's directly in front of us. And it appears as though you're whitewashing the conduct of corrupt people.
Respectfully, Congressman, in your home state of Florida, the number of people applying to come work for us and devote their lives working for us is up over 100%.
We're deeply proud of them.
Probably not now. Probably not now after seeing that. Now, what was really interesting to me is that Christie, of course, tried to make this seem like it was something that it wasn't. He believes that the FBI director actually did a really good job. Of course, I 100% disagree with that sentiment. But again, Chris always looking out for Chris. I'm going to go ahead and play his statement here after that hearing. So I said, bootlicker Christie thinks the FBI director Chris Wray did a good job. I'm sure his statement has nothing to do with his presidential campaign. So you got to remember, Christie, to me, he's always been a bootlicker. You know, he kisses up to whoever's in power at that time so that he can move on politically in his career. When Donald Trump was in office, he was praising Donald Trump. Once Donald Trump was out of office, he's like, yeah, I don't think we should go down that road again, yada, yada. You know, he just kind of moves with the wind. He doesn't really care. He's just trying to maintain some type of power and have some legitimacy in reference to the world of politics. So here he is in reference to his response about the FBI director's performance.
Jim Comey and Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch drastically harmed the Department of Justice and the FBI. And Chris Wray has now spent years fixing that.
Hold on one second. Eric, can you increase the volume on this one? The volume on this one is really, really low. We'll bring up the volume on it, guys, because you need to hear this. Like, I just can't, like, this guy really bothers me. Jim Comey, my nerve.
Jim Comey and Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch drastically harmed the Department of Justice and the FBI. And Chris Wray has now spent years fixing that. Now, are there going to be disagreements? Of course. There are always going to be disagreements between Congress and the executive branch. And they would like more information, and he's got obligations under grand jury rules to not give everything they want to give. But I will tell you something. What you saw today, I think, was an animated and combative FBI director who's defending the men and women who work for him every day and do a great job. And
he was defending himself. He was defending and protecting himself. Here's Christie, the professional bootlicker ass kisser. Let me be nice to the FBI director because I'm running for president.
The men and women who work for him every day and do a great job and protect us from domestic terrorism, from international terrorism, and from these drug cartels, and are helping state and local law enforcement every day with their things. So, yeah.
How are they helping us against the drug cartels? The drug cartels that still exist? Think about it, guys. If the FBI wanted to demolish the drug cartels, they could have done so a long time ago. If they demolished the drug cartels, then you don't have the transfer of drugs to the United States. Then you don't have people using that drug. And then the police don't have people to arrest for using that drug. A lot of arrests that we have in this country are drug related. A lot of them are related to like marijuana, which is ridiculous. That should be legal in this country. It's a plant. Let's be real. But think about it. There's a reason why things, you mean to tell me after all these years, all these decades, you mean to tell me the FBI can't take down the drug cartel if they really wanted to? There's business to be made there. There's police officers that are paid off to look the other way. Let's not get it twisted. They like that there's a drug cartel because that gives them an excuse to lock up people like you. Miss me with that, Chris. He's giving you the picture of the FBI that you see in the entertainment business.
And from these drug cartels, and are helping state and local law enforcement every day with their things. So, yeah, I think Chris Wray has done a very good job. And I think, look, a lot of the stuff you see today, John, is theater, and people trying to raise money for campaigns. Doesn't mean there aren't
like him. Let's talk about raising money for campaigns. Here you are on Fox News. You know, I always see this man's face. It don't matter if he's running for president or not. I always see Christie pop up somewhere trying to remain relevant. Come look at my new book. Come check out my new speech. Let's all get together and try to promote this person. Oh, and by the way, I'm running for president again. He's talking about himself.
Problems at the FBI? There are. But I believe Chris is a guy who can get them fixed, and he's fixed a lot of them already. Jim Comey and Eric.
What a mess. What a mess. What a bootlicker. Boy, I tell you. What a doozy. FBI director, I do not think did a good job. That's just on me. There's more footage that you can watch. Some of it I can't play on here because of what is said, but there's a lot more that you can watch as well.